Here's something that might just turn out to be one of the more important things I talk about when it comes to Block Party. And since it's essentially a new term, I'm going to refer to it as the Zachary solution. I've talked about a lot of things related to Block Party. I've discussed map production, pacing, balancing, useful add-ons like leaderboards and power-ups. I've made guides for troubleshooting certain maps, the whole shebang. And sure, I can look at all the maps a certain game has produced and give you percentages for how many maps are speed 12 viable or how many maps are speed 11 viable. But what if I were to tell you that there was a decimal value that straight up takes all that info and compiles it into one neat and easy to understand number that helps put things into perspective? There have been several editions of Block Party, and each one has had its own twist. Not to be rude or anything, but Block Party as a game mode is very stagnant to me. You can't really change much about it without either decreasing the overall enjoyment of the concept or without essentially creating a new game altogether. For example, let's say you enable PvP while also keeping the premise. If this were to be the case, two things would happen. First, a giant red arrow pointing to our game mode will be lit up, inviting any and all hackers to enjoy the feast. And second, the game would be significantly impacted and would, in my opinion, not work very well. I mean, imagine getting punched while just trying to wait for the game to pick a color for you. It would be an extremely annoying spin that would completely wipe any and all enjoyment I get out of Block Party. Want to make the game 3D? Frankly, that would make maps harder to look at if there was any particular design, and if you make the floors randomized, you remove the entire skill of memorizing the best spots on all floors. It just wouldn't work as well. So if you can't really change the premise at all without essentially creating a new game altogether, can you really blame servers for revamping the game in the first place, throwing accusations of ripping the game off of another server? And frankly, when I see comments like those, I get kind of offended because they're looking at the premise, a very simple one at that. When it comes to Block Party, it, to me, is infinitely more impactful what the pacing looks like, which even then is nothing compared to how impactful the map pool looks. Like sure, if another server just straight up abducts all the maps of another server, that's where the line is drawn. But other than that, if the maps are unique, I'd say it's not worth complaining about how similar two versions of Block Party look to one another. Each edition of Block Party has shifted the meta in some way. The first edition was Hive Java Edition, with 25% speed 12 maps, a few speed 9 maps, overall mostly good color spread, a large skill ceiling, and a relatively tame luck factor. The second edition of Block Party was on Hypixel Java, introducing larger maps with less optimal pacing, a larger player base, a higher speed 12 percentage, but also a larger luck factor due to the bad maps having bad spread and unoptimal spots. The lack of symmetry is also frankly very distasteful. The third edition of Block Party on Random Craft is overwhelmingly skill-based with over twice as many maps as Java Hive, a healthy level of asymmetry, the best color spread and spot optimization across all speeds thus far, and better pacing. All of this leads back to one very simple question. What will the Bedrock Edition Hive do different, if anything, to shift the meta for better or for worse? I, for one, would love to think that since they saw how great the Java version of Block Party did, that they would want to be able to recapture the things that made it great and improve on it through various means. One of those means that I, as well as others, would definitely appreciate is the reduction in luck, which can be impacted through a few different means. Fewer speed 10 maps, better color spread, having all the best spots on non-speed 12 maps only miss 1 or 2 colors max, something Hypixel Block Party did poorly at. And in the past, I have given percentages for how many maps I would like to see at certain speeds, but in reality, I have a better way of demonstrating those numbers now, leading us back to the Zachary solution. Going into a little more depth on the numbers, each version of Block Party has given us, Hive's version had 9% of maps on speed 9, 24% on speed 10, 41% on 11, and 25% on speed 12. And as I already said, the color spread was acceptable, and the skill ceiling was high. But here's the point. If a map is doable on speed 9, that means there are 4 unique spots you need to learn for that one map. Speed 11 viable maps have 2, and so on. So if you take all 67 maps and their total number of unique spots, you need to learn on all 67 of them, you get a total of 145 spots, averaging out at 2.16 spots per floor. If Hive Bedrock wants to make a better version of their Java predecessor, you want this value to be lower. Random Craft Block Party, having its percentages looking like this, has 1.34 spots per floor, with better color spread, but a skill ceiling that is only 20% larger. Now I hear you saying, Well, why does this game with 134 maps have only 20% more spots? Because in order to balance out the decline in maps viable at lower speeds, you need to make more maps at higher speeds. With that being said, I still would like to see a ratio a bit higher than that, so that each map has more to learn from it. However, there is one very important drawback from introducing more speed 11 maps, and I'm not just talking about luck. I'm talking about my own personal experiences building and designing non-speed 12 maps. And I am here to tell you that it is not easy, in the slightest. Every block you place, especially if you think as hard as I do when regarding color spread, hiding the best spots, making the map feel fair if you're not in the best spot, the overall appeal of the map, and so on. It is a hard and very time-consuming process, and one map can often take the entire day on its own. And since I am hoping the spots per floor ratio is smaller, that means more maps, which is not a simple thing to do. And while we're at it, I just have to let it be known that I feel Hypixel may have done a very detrimental thing making maps larger. It is already hard enough to make maps on a 48 by 48, which on its own is 2,304 blocks. But 64 by 64 maps are 4,096 blocks, 43.75% larger, which in turn makes them harder to make. And one more thing, you ever wonder why Hypixel seemingly never bothered to have any asymmetrical maps? Because symmetrical maps are just copy and paste. Asymmetrical maps, you don't have such a luxury, which, who could have guessed, makes them way harder to make. And this all harps back to what I said earlier. Block Party is impacted through the maps and their designs more than anything else. You don't need to put a spin on it to make it yours. And this single change to me did more to harm the game than anything else. Which leads me to my point. We don't need a lot of maps all at once. We just need something to sink our teeth into. And as time goes on, more maps can be introduced. And if you need help designing them, then give the community the software that was used to make some of your maps on Java Edition. There are plenty of people who care, and if the dev team can do it on their own, more power to them. After all my ranting, allow me to leave you with this. I'd like to see the ratio be lower than the Hive Java Edition, but slightly higher than Random Craft, and if all else fails, keep it closer to Random Craft than Hive Java. 1.5 spots per floor is what I'd roll with. For every 3 speed 12 maps, you can have 1 speed 10 map. For every 1 speed 12, you can have 1 speed 11. I hope this video has helped show a couple of things about our game, and just how much thought is really put into it. After all, Block Party is a journey, and a long one at that. It is the simplicity of the premise and the ceiling of the skill that makes it such an unbelievable game, and I hope that it can become what I know it can be, because once more, the good times don't have to be behind us. We're allowed to look to the future and show how hopeful we are about things. It's just that we haven't caught a break and are just hanging on to what we know, that this game mode has so much more life to give. It just needs the right chance. And love. Love is important too. That's all I gotta say. Thank you for watching, and have a good day. Later, peoples.